Laptop computer spins onto the screen, opens, and displays ATP Education Program webinar series, closes, and then spins off the screen.
Hello and welcome to this video, Making It Visual, Simple Visual Supports for Students with Executive Functioning Deficits. I'm super excited today. If you've watched any of the other videos in our series, you'll know that I bring up visuals pretty much all the time when I'm talking about assistive technology for executive functioning. But today we're going to spend just a short time on this video talking all about visuals. My name is Cassie Frost. I'm an assistive technology specialist, behavior specialist, problem solver, collector of things that may come in handy, and believer that everyone can learn. My Twitter handle is here on this page, and I will also include my email on the last slide. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Also, as we go through today's video, I want to make sure that you're aware that because it is a video, you can fast forward or you can pause and rewind. I'm going to show a lot of examples and some resources today, so definitely feel free to pause and go back if you need specific names of things or things that you want to look at further. So, some key points about visuals. Visuals can be high-tech or low-tech. Visuals can be things like photos that you take with your cell phone. They can be things that are in specific schedule programs, your calendar on your cell phone, your desktop background. All of those would be considered more high-tech visuals. They can also be low-tech, like Post-it notes, things printed off on paper. Most often when we're talking about visuals, we do tend to go a little more on the low-tech end, just because teachers initially think of visuals as being, posters around their classroom and things like that. But they can be either or. One of the great things about visuals is it reduces repetition. I'll often say, if you have to repeat something 3 times, make a visual. So if a student asks you the same thing 3 times, or 3 different students ask you the same thing 3 times, stop, make a visual so you do not need to continue to repeat yourself. Set it up in a way that students can find that answer without having to ask over and over again. Visuals are easy to use. They're easy to make, they're easy for students to access, they're easy to be moved from classroom to classroom. They're just simply easy to use all the way around. As we're talking about the easy to use and easy to create, be aware they can be made as simply as writing a note on a piece of paper, drawing a stick figure. That works as a visual. You can also go into some high-end graphic design programs if you want to make some really beautiful, high-end visual as well. Oftentimes they work exactly the same. It just may work differently for your aesthetic in your classroom or how you enjoy doing things. Schedules are great for visuals. We all use them. We all look at them. Students on the first day of school will be going back to their schedule over and over again. We go back to our calendars all the time. Schedules are great. Routines for visuals are phenomenal. Things that you're going to do over and over again. So like lining up, handing in papers, brushing your teeth, washing your hands. Those are all routines that visuals work great for. Also, social stories are a visual. Whether you're using a picture social story or you are writing out a social story, this is content and information that your student is taking in a visual manner to learn how the world is working around them and what it is they need to be doing to interact with it. So, as we're talking about visuals, it's important to recognize visuals are a part of our everyday life. On the screen, I've shown some visuals that we interact with all of the time, even as adults out in society. Oftentimes, we can kind of forget how reliant we are as visuals throughout our entire life. So the first example here are some street signs, dead end, no exit, one way, stop signs. Nobody is auditorially telling us this. We're not kind of memorizing where the dead ends are and the stop signs are. These are visuals that are given to us to know how we should interact with the road. A menu up on a board is also a visual for us. When we go to order food, the restaurant could just tell us the order. And in some restaurants they'll do. They'll come up and they'll tell you what the specials are. Oftentimes, people still want to look at a menu. They want the visual. They want to be able to see pictures of the food, read about the food before they order it. That's a visual support. All the way to something as simple as a mailbox. A mailbox has a flag on it. If there is mail in the box that needs to go out, you raise the flag. The mail person will put the flag down after they've delivered the mail. So there's a visual component just to cue somebody that something's changed, something needs to happen, and it's as simple as a flag. So we use visuals all day, every day. So it's definitely something that we also want to include in a student's day. This will greatly help a lot of students who are struggling with executive functioning across the board. So let's look at some of the different areas of executive functioning and how visuals might work with that. So if we're looking at a student who's struggling with attention, they may benefit from visuals that include like the steps of an activity, so they know what's coming next and they can stay focused on it. Also with attention, sometimes limited extra visuals is beneficial. This means that the visuals that they are interacting with or seeing in your classroom should have a purpose. Extra colorful posters and funny posters, things like that, should always be behind a student or off to the sides so that their attention is not taken up with those extra visuals. However, visuals that are helping out in the classroom, showing steps of things, those are phenomenal for students who struggle with attention. For a student who is struggling with memory in the area of executive functioning, having visuals that show the steps of an activity or the steps of routines can really help with anxiety and can really help a student who struggles with memory move through the steps without feeling like they need to ask all of the time, what's coming next? What do I need to do next? For a student who struggles with organization, labels are one of the best things you can do. Label your folders, label your files, label your drawers, label your shelves, so students know where things go. Also, if you have a shelf or a bookshelf or a cupboard that needs to kind of look a certain way, a visual that shows a picture of what it should look like is really great for a student who struggles with organization because they can easily, at a glance, look at the picture and see where things go. For a student who struggles with time management, visuals that include a daily schedule and visuals of time passing, meaning visual clocks, countdown timers, anything that shows the passage of time in a visual, less abstract way will help a student who struggles with time management. For a student who struggles with processing, any visuals that front load what's coming next, so what class is next, what activity is next, what's coming next, will help a student in that process of moving on to the next thing. Additionally, any changes or warnings going visual. So in other words, if there's going to be a substitute teacher the next day, if there's going to be a change in the schedule, if there is going to be a change in the lunch menu, any of those things, having a warning or a visual that is telling the student that something different is coming up allows a student who struggles with processing extra time to work through that. So as you can tell, there are executive functioning visual supports that work for all areas. So any student who is struggling with any one of these areas of executive functioning is going to benefit from having additional visuals in their world. So let's look at a few different types of visuals and some examples. So first, we're going to look at schedules. I think a lot of times when people picture visuals and schedules, they think of kind of the standard schedule that a teacher gives out during the day. But what I wanted to do today is show you some different ways that schedules can be customized to work with students. So the very first one here is just a simple kind of a bell schedule. So, 8:45 to 9, 9 to 9:45. And it's kind of going to break down, there's check-in, there's encore, there's social skills, there's math, kind of so a student can see what's coming next in their day. This particular student benefited from also having the visual picture there, so it wasn't always just words. At a glance, they could utilize the picture. And this student also really did well if they knew if something had changed, if something was going to be different in any one of those classes. So in this schedule, we allowed room to be able to write in any changes that could be happening throughout the day. So if there was a different educational assistant, if there was a sub, if they needed to bring something different to class, we could help them write that in that area so they could see that it was coming in their day. We have a different student maybe who needs something a little less intense. They just need to know what hour, what room, what are the times, because they struggle a little bit with the time management, knowing exactly what time each class started and ended, who is their teacher, and what was the actual class they were taking. And so this schedule is a little bit smaller. It doesn't have the room for writing. They didn't need that. There was a day 1, day 2. They kind of struggled with the difference between the two. So this was a simple one page that showed both days. The student enjoyed folding this over, and then sometimes they'd keep it in their pocket or in a pocket in their folder or in their own pocket. But it allowed them at a glance to be able to see who was the teacher, what was the time, what was the room number. Okay, so again, kind of a difference between these two depending on what the student needs. A couple more examples. Over on the left, there is a schedule that includes some social story stuff, okay, some points. The speech and language pathologist that worked with the student really thought the student would do better if they had some of these phrases that could help remind them of what they could do during the day. So if they were feeling frustrated, or if they had the urge to blurt out, it would really help to just kind of have those visual reminders at the top of their schedule. Whether they read them intensively each day or not, they were still there and the student was taking that content in. The student, instead of needing the warning of changes in their day, they needed a place to have any reminders that they needed to bring things to class or what they could do during free time, and also a place to write in homework. The student on the right needed very little as far as the schedule. They needed more help with assignments. So in this one, it was each period, the class, and the teacher. They didn't need to know the minutes of each class. That did not bother them. The bell rang. They were always good. So processing was a little bit better there. But this is a student that struggled a little more with memory. They couldn't remember what assignments they needed to do if they had them done. So we created this schedule for them. And finally, here is a more visual schedule. So this student actually needed pictures of the time, pictures of the school subject, and they would actually move check marks on and off. So this one worked with Velcro and pictures. So as you can see there, when I say visual schedule, we all think of one, but there's a wide variety of ways to create a schedule that works specifically for each student and based off of what they need. The really nice thing is once you've created one or two, it's pretty easy to edit them for what students need. You can also use visuals for routines. As you can see here, I have two different posters. They look very similar, but these can be edited based off of what students need. These both show the steps of hand washing. So you're going to have water, you're going to have soap, you're going to run your hands under the water. Some students needed a little more prompting, so wash for 30 seconds under running water. Some students needed more of the prompt of count to 30. That reminded them what they needed to do. They're not super pretty. As you can see, this was a visual that I had to create super quickly, so I didn't have time to make everything super beautiful, but it works. It shows the steps. It reminds students what they need to do, the length of time that they need to do it. In order to create visuals, there are quite a few different tools that you can use. There are some programs out there specifically meant for making visuals. I've listed some of them here. BoardMaker probably was one of the most commonly known a few years ago. Symbol Sticks and Lesson Picks are a couple more cost-effective options that have some different features to them. I know people that I work with that use visuals that each have a favorite that works best for them. I will tell you that some of these have free trials. I would definitely go to any one of their websites and check them out. They will all make visuals, however, slightly different. Read and Write for Google is a tool that provides a lot of assistive technology supports. I like adding this one in when I'm talking about visuals, simply because you can actually use their picture dictionary to drag pictures onto your Google Doc or Google Slide for the students that need picture support. So without having to create another account and use another program, you can use, if you already use Read and Write for Google, you can use the picture dictionary to take and use pictures for student schedules from there. So I like including that one. I'm not going to go into great detail on each one of these just because they each have their own trainings and preview videos and all of their things on their websites. So I would feel free to check those out if you're looking for a tool for creating visuals. If you are going to design any type of visual for your students, I think it's important to be aware you can use something like Google Docs, Microsoft, any of those things to simply type up a visual and create it very quickly. You also can go as far as a paper and pencil. You can sketch out on a piece of paper or write out a schedule, and that works as a visual. It doesn't have to be something super involved and beautiful and frilly and lots of pictures in order for it to work. My two favorites when I'm looking at any sort of visual would be Google Slides and Canva. Google Slides, most of us are pretty familiar with. The reason I like that is because you can click and drag pictures and items around on the screen where you can't do that in Docs. Canva I like because it is a little more colorful and it's a super easy way to make a very polished and professional looking schedule. And if you go to Canva, there's a free version. There's also an educator's version. The other thing I really like about this is it has kind of schedules and templates and things all ready to go for you. So it'll give you kind of an outline and a place to start where you can just edit it for your information. For some students, they actually do really well if you even sit down with them and they can help you change the color and customize their own schedule or their own routine. And there's a little more buy-in with that. Infographics are a great visual. Sometimes we don't think of them as visuals. So for example, if you wanted to create an infographic with Google Slides, I've created an infographic showing you how. I think that's kind of interesting. It's an infographic about how to create an infographic. But you can see here super simply with one picture, one infographic, how you would go about doing this. There's tons of information here on this slide, but it has everything that you need in one place. So for your students, if there's things that they need to go through or work through, consider making an infographic that will show them in pictures each of the things that they need to do in order to accomplish it. It's kind of a fun way to think about visuals in your classroom. Another fun thing you can do with visuals is to create a GIF or a GIF, depending on how you pronounce it. I know everybody has their favorite way. But this simply was made using Creator Studio. It's a Google Slides add-on, and it's free to go this far. And while this looks super impressive, all this really was each one of these flashes, each one of these pictures is one Google slide. So I went into Google Slide and I made one slide for each of these pictures. And I used Creator Studio and said, go ahead and make me a GIF. And it put them all into this short little video GIF for me. So think of how powerful it would be if you had the steps of getting your materials out and ready to go in the morning, and you just had that playing on the corner of your morning message slide deck. Okay, so GIFs are really, really powerful, especially if you're showing the steps of doing something. So for a student who struggles with memory or with attention, having these steps being repeated over and over again in a very visual manner will really help the students be able to successfully complete those steps. If you have any questions, you can reach out at me here. You can reach out at this email to reach me here. That was a lot. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have not yet went back to look at the other videos in this series, there are a bunch of videos all about executive functioning and assistive technology that I think you would enjoy. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for watching. For more information on the ATP education program, please visit our website at atp.nebraska.gov/education or email us at atp.education@nebraska.gov.